Okay, super excited to be back for our second class, The End in Mind, Finding Peace of Mind on the Inside. Hope you found a lot of value in that first class and you began to write out, as I hoped you would, what is you hope to do on the inside, which really leads to our second class, The End in Mind. Now, I have a little timeline up here, which is something we really created. For me, when I surrendered to federal prison, I was 33. I wasn't married. I didn't have children. The end in mind for me didn't come until many months into my prison term. As I mentioned in the first video, spending time with Michael Santos really helped me understand how I wanted to emerge from this experience. The majority of people surrender to prison. Well, I shouldn't be too general. A lot of people surrender to prison. In many cases, they're so upset over their case or the conviction or the length of the prison term or the fallout that accompanies the conviction, they never really get going. There's a common phrase in the halfway house, which is, I'll get going when I have 6 months to the house, which is prison vernacular for 6 months to the halfway house. And of course, by then, you've cultivated habits. I'm of the opinion what you do in the first week sets the tone for the whole journey. I mean, like the whole thing. It is so incredibly difficult to change habits in life. I mean, think about things that you do on a daily basis and then how hard it will be to actually change them. I mean, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, I know it. A huge benefit actually to serving time in federal prison is it forces you to create new habits. It forces you to think differently. And frankly, it helps you or allows you to do things that you never imagined you'd actually do, whether it's fasting for a day, running a marathon, reading a book, or writing a book, reading 100 books, teaching. I mean, it's incredible what's possible there. And I want you all to get excited about going. I know you don't want to go, but if you're there, you might as well make the most of it. So when we come to the end in mind, for me, when I surrendered to prison, it wasn't to jump all the way here. In 2008, I wasn't jumping to the end of 2020, frankly. Just cool timeline we created. I wasn't thinking about a YouTube channel or a TV or anything like that. I'll tell you what I was thinking as we scroll up, and I'm sharing this with you, not to talk so much about me, but to get you thinking, what does your end in mind look like? Let me tell you what my end was after several months in prison, spending time with Michael Santos, beginning to think about it. Before children, before marriage, this was hi, Sandra. Here was my end in mind. There he is, my father. Big Burn, as we call him. He's lost a lot of weight lately. He's walking about 5 miles a day. He looks terrific. My end and why I began to prepare was I didn't want to encumber my parents the rest of my life. The first step, it wasn't white collar advice. It wasn't a blog. It wasn't a book. It wasn't TV. It wasn't being a prison consultant or speaker. It was, I better do something because I don't want to encumber my parents for the rest of their life. So you've got to immediately begin to think with the end in mind. As you emerge from prison, what is it you hope your life will look like? For me, it was the day my parents picked me up and I went to the filth that was the halfway house. I wanted them to know that I had a path. It may take some time. I wanted them to know that I had a path that would not infringe upon their retirement, that would not worry about my ability to sustain myself, despite my conviction and the loss of licenses. And I wanted them to know that I wasn't going to get a job from someone that was going to hire me as a favor. I did not want favors or courtesy. In fact, my brother owns a very lucrative, successful business. He probably could have hired me. It would have felt like a favor. I couldn't do it, frankly. I wouldn't accept it. So if you can understand that end, what do you want the end to look like? You can begin to craft the perfect day in prison. You can begin to create a schedule that makes the most sense for you. And of course, that agenda or what you do inside is going to differ depending on what your goals are. Here's something I can share with you about my experience on the inside. It requires a great deal of resolve and energy to work on days where you may not think it will ever pay off. And that's why it's so easy to get sucked into this very negative world of confinement. One, you may form friendships with guys who tell you your ideas are terrible, it's not going to work out. Prison's a microcosm of society. It's very easy to get into a routine where you're very easily manipulated or influenced or buy into the idea that nothing you do in prison really matters anyway. So you rationalize or convince yourself that nothing you do matters anyway. So why even start? I'm not going to start. I ain't got nothing coming because I'm a convicted felon. No one's going to hire me. So by convincing yourself of that, you just never get going. So in order to think successfully, it's going to require, I think I mentioned in the last class, a sense of, I don't know if it's arrogance or ignorance or stupidity, just the fervent belief that you can actually do it, the belief that you can accomplish something significant in prison despite such resistance. And you look at people on our team like Josh Boyer, who served, he got a 20-year sentence. His sentence was commuted by President Obama. He had a lot of dark days over that journey, yet he educated himself. He prepared himself through all security levels. And as a result of that, he got a commutation, but he has myriad opportunities on the outside. He works with our company and he works with Sean Hopwood, my good friend, who of course is a kind of a famous lawyer here in DC. It all originated with him thinking about the end in mind. I want to emerge with opportunities, with a path to sustain myself. If not, I might as well just stay in prison because it's easier to get 3 meals a day and, you know, some exercise and some comfort. So you've got to fully understand that people are going to be coming at you and telling you that your efforts may be worthwhile or futile. You have to resolve yourself to prepare for that and have a plan, of course, to overcome it. Coming back to the end in mind, you also have to understand and embrace what's realistic. It's great to have an end. Maybe you want to be a multimillionaire, you want to build a business, you want whatever it may be. Is it realistic? Do you have the skill set for whatever it is you'd actually like to accomplish? Does your conviction preclude you from moving back into that space? So for example, as much as if I wanted to become a stockbroker, even if I had an end in mind of becoming a stockbroker again, settling with the Securities and Exchange Commission and being a convicted felon in prison precluded me from being a securities broker. It ain't going to happen. It's a bye-bye. So you've got to be realistic in your goals and what it is you're hoping to do. I shared this story somewhere in this class where I mentioned my bunkie and others in prison. They used to paper trade all day. They'd actually get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and 10 or 12 of them would congregate in the large TV room and they would paper trade. And they would say that they were making millions of dollars by way of this paper trading. And one time I had formed a friendship with my bunkie and he was asking me what I thought and if I would invest in this upon my release. And I said, well, can I speak honestly to you without upsetting you? And he said, sure. And I said, does that seem realistic that people who have no security licenses, no background in managing money or raising money would then release from prison after very lengthy prison terms and without regulatory approval, knowing there's a lot of government investigators out there, a lot of government investigations going on? Does it seem likely that people would give you millions of dollars to manage because you have paper trades? And his answer was, well, probably not, but it keeps me busy. Okay, that's a different message then. So I really appreciated that he was honest with me and he asked my honest opinion, because sometimes when guys ask you questions in prison, they want you to tell them what they want to hear. They don't really want their honest opinion. It just kept him busy. And I'm not saying he wasn't learning a skill set of managing the markets and learning, but it would have been with his own portfolio someday, because I can assure you he wasn't going home to raise millions of dollars from Wall Street to manage a huge portfolio. Not with 15 years in prison or out any licenses or a track record of managing real money that wasn't paper profits. So you have to distinguish between activity, wow, I'm active today, and actually pursuing activities that translate to the life you'd like to lead on the other side. So what I would encourage all of you to do, if you're thinking with the end in mind and giving thought to how you want to emerge, in my case, as I said, it was to make my parents proud, to not, to let them know that I could make it. I wasn't thinking about anything other than that. I figured if I could somehow sustain myself so my parents wouldn't have to send me money after losing $1 million with my conviction and restitution and just everything that accompanies this process. All of you know that so well. You know it as well as me. But I figured if I could find a way to sustain myself and not have to borrow or beg from them or anybody for a job, that was success for me. Now, some people may think bigger. Some people may have plans and aspirations to do things that are so incredibly huge and big. That wasn't it for me. It was I'd lay in my rack after a long day of waking early and reading and writing alongside Michael and exercising and thinking, my parents will be proud of me. So if it's not your parents, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your children, letting them know that you can deal with this setback and handle it with dignity by documenting your plan to emerge successfully. It's why I'm such a proponent of writing. It's a shame when people call me and they're home from prison. They tell me about all the great things they did, and I'll say, well, did you document it? What do you mean? What did you write about it? Did you document it? How do I have no doubt you're telling me the truth, but how do I know? Everyone that's on our team has documented their success through prison because they're authentic and they can prove it rather than, just say it. How many of you, if you've already been sentenced, probably got a better sanction because you just didn't tell the judge something, you were able to follow up and follow through with it. Not what your lawyer is paid to say, but the actions that you put in place. Well, it's no different in prison. And if you're going to grow that network and emerge successfully, you're going to have to do that. So coming back to goals for a moment, I encourage you, as cliche as it sounds, there's nothing new in this prison course or peace of mind course about writing out goals. What's wonderful about doing it is it gives you an opportunity to share it with your network, because confinement is harder on them. So if they know you have an end in mind and how it is you plan to emerge, then it inspires them. It makes them feel more comfortable. They can sleep better. They won't be as worried about your sanity and what it is you plan to do when you come home. So that's how I'm going to wrap up this class, the end in mind. There's nothing to worry about prison and with respect to violence. Now, look, if you act like a fool in your local coffee shop or donut shop, you may get punched. If you act like a fool in prison and run to staff and talk loudly on the phone and cut in line and don't wash your hands after using the restroom and don't do your job, and if you're running a business, do so in a way that elicits attention from staff. Of course, there's a right and a wrong way to learn how to run a business from prison. So if you act foolishly, whether in society or in prison, bad things are going to happen. So that's why in that first lesson, I sent you the disciplinary infractions. You've got to avoid trouble. And if you can do that, phenomenal things are possible. So presuming you're avoiding trouble, you want to position yourself to spend each day productively. And you can only do that by emerging how you want to, by thinking about how you want to emerge. And last thing I'll say is I tended to get overwhelmed. I still tend to get overwhelmed when I think about everything it is I hope to accomplish in life. And some prisoners would surrender and say, well, I want to lose 50 pounds, and I want to write a book, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And it's so massive and so big that it's really not possible for them to even get started. So for me, what I've always done is I've just broken it up as best I possibly could. Maybe that works for you. That's why you're taking this course. And there's a sense of dignity that comes in checking things off of your list. So in my case, every day I write out what it is I hope to do the next day. And throughout the day, I will check this off. If you were to ask my wife what I do, I'm walking around with this yellow notepad, checking things off my list. It makes me feel good. I get to derive a sense of confidence and self-esteem, knowing I'm saying I'm going to do something, and then I'm actually doing it. So as you surrender and you have all of these massive goals, break them down. If it's overwhelming, break them down even further and break them down even further and even further. And if you can do that while keeping the end in mind, you're going to emerge a lot better than the troubling statistics suggest. I'm going to attach a lesson plan at the end of this video that I'd like you to read. I encourage you to go through and answer the questions. Of course, if you have questions for me or our team, simply respond to the email that you're going to receive, and I'm happy to answer them. Begin with the end in mind and think about how you want to emerge from this experience. And if you can do that, you can put actions in place every single day and do it on days you don't want to. Do it on days people tell you it's useless, that nobody cares, it's not going to matter. Do not pursue activities just to stay busy, like my buddies trading paper stocks at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Be realistic. Be honest with yourself about your skill set and what it is you can and cannot do. And if you can do that, you'll emerge better and stronger. Look forward to returning for our third class, which you are going to have tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.